Recently, when I started doing some podcast interviews, I noticed that a lot of people have been using this tool, Calendly, in order to schedule meetings, schedule Zoom meetings, virtual meetings. So what I want to do in this video is react to the founder of Calendly talking about the business, because there's great lessons from him. If you're new to this channel, my name is Mariusz Konieczny. I run Microcap Explosions, which is a private membership website dedicated to microcap stocks that are underfollowed and ignored by the investment industry. I also wrote 10 books on investing, one of which is available for free download at microcapexplosions.com. I also created a free resource called valueinvestinguniversity.com, which was designed to make you a more intelligent investor. Calendly is a website that I am noticing that people are using more and more to help them schedule meetings with each other. And they have different pricing strategies. Like you can get one for free, then you can get like one for $8 a month, $12, $16. So let's have a listen to the founder's story.
My dad inspired me to be an entrepreneur because he himself was an entrepreneur. So he had a great job at a major corporation in Nigeria, but then he decided one day to give that up and pursue starting his own business. And so that inspired me to become an entrepreneur. He was also a risk taker, the very fact that he sort of gave up the comfort of a stable job to start his own business. And he was incredibly hardworking, right? So I vividly remember many late nights in which he was working into the night, and all that really inspired me to become an entrepreneur.
So let's think about this for a second. The guy is not even from the US, right? He's from Africa, and he started this business, and everybody in the US is starting to use this service, right? During the time where you have these Microsoft, Apples of the world, email providers, Google, none of them came up with this idea. It took somebody from Africa to come up with this idea.
What's interesting about Calendly is from the outside, it almost seemed to come out of nowhere because Tope had funded it himself, he bootstrapped it, and then all of a sudden it was worth $3 billion last year with the latest venture round. So that was really interesting. It was sort of like the same way that MailChimp, which is also an Atlanta company, had come out of nowhere in that way. So at this point, Calendly is quite a substantial company. It has over 400 people, over 100 million in revenue, and it could double its revenue again this year. So
she just said that the company is worth $3 billion and $100 million of revenues, right? So 30 times revenues, right? And it's clear that the company is not public, because the traditional way for these kinds of companies to be born is, the founder has an idea, he puts his money into it, and then the venture capital finances it, right? And so maybe at some point it's going to be public, but right now it's not. And so the reason why I'm talking about it is that there's this big disconnect between venture capital in the private world and venture capital in the public world. So people that go to school, they dream about going into venture capital on the private side. And then when you introduce them to like TSXV, which is Toronto Stock Exchange Venture, it's public companies that are doing the same thing. That's trash, you shouldn't touch it. Or OTC, that's trash, you shouldn't touch it. So what happens is that those kinds of companies are out there, and you and I cannot invest in them because they're in the private hands. You have to have connection to privately invest in those kinds of companies. But we can get opportunities like this in the public stock market, like Toronto Stock Exchange Venture or Canadian Stock Exchange or OTC. We can get those kinds of opportunities. We don't need any connections. We can get those opportunities. But in general, like most people don't even know those opportunities exist.
Tope is a new billionaire this year on the list. He's worth $1.4 billion based on his majority stake in the company, and that's after the 10% discount that Forbes takes on all privately held company shares.
So the guy from Africa solves a little problem like this, a problem of scheduling, right? And you might think about, and then he becomes a billionaire as a result of this, right? And now we might not have a good idea like this, but we can benefit from somebody else's idea if we are actually able to invest in somebody else's idea. And as I said before, we can invest in it in the private venture capital world, but we could possibly invest in it in the public world. But as a society or an investment community, we don't, because that's trashy, that's awful. Well, it's not awful if you can go through individual businesses and find yourself opportunities. And also one other thing that I want to point out here is that this company, has like a monthly fee, which is great recurring, right? It a little bit reminds me of Secure, because Secure also has like similar pricing, right? But Secure obviously is, at an early stage of the development. But I can already see when this company was first launched, I can already see the naysayers saying, nobody's going to pay $10 a month for you to schedule a meeting. Like, people can do it through email, right? And that's why this thing was born. It's because people were doing it through email or through telephone. And they had to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was time wasting. Where with Calendly, what they can do is just send you a link to their calendar and you choose the time that you want to book with them. And that's how I see people use it with me. I don't have a subscription to this, but I see people using it. They want to book me on a podcast or something like this. They'll send me their Calendly a link, and then I choose the time that works for me. I put myself in, and then automatically I get an email with a link to Zoom or something like this. And I don't pay for this service, but other people pay for this service. But this is an example of how somebody saw an opportunity, somebody saw an inefficiency, somebody saw a problem, and they solved that problem. And because this is solving so many people's problems, the company is worth $3 billion, and the guy himself is worth $1 billion, right? And I can see something like this with Secure very similarly, is that, they're solving a problem of email communication, lack of privacy, we hate the big tech and all that, and some people are paying for it. And if enough people sign up for the platform, and let's say Secure gets 1 million subscribers, and they can also have $100 million worth of revenues, the company is going to be worth $3 billion, just like Calendly is worth $3 billion. But of course, the company has to get there in order for that to happen. But I just kind of see similarities.
The idea for the company came from a frustrating experience I had trying to schedule a meeting. So I was looking to schedule a very important customer meeting, and many days later and many emails later, we still were no closer to finding a time. This inspired me to really learn about the problem of scheduling and why it was so difficult. And out of that sort of investigation came this obsession with solving scheduling. Since then, the product has evolved into more than scheduling, into sort of what we call automating the meeting lifecycle. So automating the key tasks that happen during the preparation and follow-up of the meeting so that our customers can have great meetings.
So then, exactly, it's what I was talking about. He saw an opportunity, he solved the problem. He didn't wait for somebody else to solve the problem. He solved the problem because he was successful in solving the problem and people are finding his solution useful. He became a billionaire. But of course, this video and many videos focus on the founders and how they became millionaires. But it doesn't talk about how there's other people behind it that invested in his venture that also became very rich on that investment. And even though their names are not mentioned. And that's what you and I are trying to do when we're trying to invest in growing or developing companies that have something special. We're not founding these companies, we're not running these companies, but we can get rich off of their idea and off of their work.
The lessons I learned very early on in starting businesses is that the first thing you want to do is when you see a problem, take action. Rather than wait for somebody else to solve a problem, there's no reason why you can't take a stab at solving it yourself. And so action is important, but I also learned that really having a differentiated approach, right? What is going to be different about your product or service? What is going to be different about the way you go to market and sell it and price it, right? All those things are really important. So it's important to do a lot of customer discovery, make sure you really understand the customers and the problem, and have a unique approach to solving the problem.
I think what's interesting about him is he's this super smart guy, but he's also a little bit different than some founders because he didn't really care about having venture money. He didn't really care about some of the external things, but was focused on Calendly and how to make it work. And he really also just believed in himself in the way that he threw everything into it. You know, he spent down his 401k, he flew into Ukraine while it was having its earlier conflict in order to get software engineers there to develop the first product. He bet everything on this company.
Just a final thought, the last word that she said. He bet everything on this company. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm telling you that you should bet everything on the companies that you invest in. That's not the idea. The point is that we see so many entrepreneurs become extremely rich because they bet big. They bet big behind their ideas. And that's why they're succeeded. Elon Musk, this guy, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they bet big behind their ideas. But now everywhere you turn, people tell you you can't bet big. You can't, concentrate. You have to diversify. You have to do this. You have to do that. So they're telling you how to be average. And these people succeed because they go big after their ideas. But that's assuming their ideas succeed. There's thousands and thousands of companies out there that their founders didn't succeed and lost everything they had. So I guess, the point behind this is that if you over diversify, you guarantee yourself average returns, but you don't fail. When you bet big, you can succeed, but you better make sure that you bet on the right thing. If you bet on the wrong thing, you're gonna lose it all, and it's not gonna be a perfect picture. So whatever it is that you bet on, you start a business or you invest in companies, the most important thing is to bet on the right things. So do proper due diligence, bet on the things that are great, and just be careful out there. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and have a good one.